Welcome back to another episode of The Founder, a show that features entrepreneurs and their early stories of ingenuity, struggle, and perseverance to get their companies off the ground. We do our best to capture the uncensored, uncovered look behind the curtain into what founders really face when getting started. I'm your host, Kallaway. Our founder guest on today's episode bounced around several different industries before getting to where she is today. After graduating from University of Texas with a marketing degree, she held roles in politics, advertising, and finance before working for a startup tequila brand and ultimately in children's book publishing at Scholastic. Throughout all her experiences, she still felt like she had a lot of untapped energy, drive, and ambition that wasn't being utilized. So she quit. She said she felt like a huge failure and decided to go to the one place in the world that she felt really good, Bali. When she got there, it was an unlock. She said she was able to get out of the typical corporate grind for productivity and reconnect with what made her joyful. That's where she got the idea to start Baloo. At Baloo, this founder and her team sell weighted blankets, a proven remedy to help people that suffer from poor sleep and anxiety. While it remains unclear exactly why weighted blankets cause better and deeper sleep, it's believed that weighted blankets mimic the memory of being bundled up in our mother's arms, a comforting feeling that promotes relaxation. Baloo makes their blankets with glass microbeads and has rave reviews from their customers. As a special offer, this founder is giving our listeners 10% off all weighted blankets. Use code FOUNDER when checking out to take advantage of the special offer. This is an inspiring interview that really highlighted how we don't all have a straight line path to get where we want to go, and how passion and energy for great products that solve a real need can take you far. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Without further ado, the founder of Baloo, Elizabeth Grojean. Let's get it. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking with you.
Me too. So before we get started building up the story of how you came up with the idea for Baloo, what I like to do on the show is start with an anchor point. So can you provide kind of an anchor point of what the company looks like today? Mission, vision, size, what are the products you sell?
Yes, so it is June 2020, and we've been in business for just a few months, over 2 years now. And our primary product is weighted blankets, which help people with sleep and anxiety, mostly with going to sleep faster, staying asleep more deeply, and also sort of helping soothe and combat that insomnia connected anxiety, that fear of now I can't go to sleep and I'm trying really hard and staying awake. So we find that people using our blankets are able to go to sleep much, much faster and get better quality sleep. I'm based here in New York, and we have a team that's here in the city with me. And then we have a few remote people who are part time, all based in the US. And then we work with a couple of different agency partners as well.
Gotcha. Well, the lack of sleep and restlessness is a problem in our house, so I'm excited to get into it. Let's rewind the clock a bit. Can you walk us through your life and professional background leading up to when you started working on Blue?
Yeah, I graduated with a degree in marketing from University of Texas in Austin, and was one of those people that wanted to work really hard and make a difference, and was just looking for the right place or organization to fit myself into to do that. And I tried a lot of, I felt like a square peg trying to go into a round hole. I tried so many organizations and industries. I worked in politics. I was assistant to one of the first female lobbyists in DC for 1 year. I worked in advertising at BBDO in Chicago on the Wrigley Gum account. Parties where we're wearing like the Double Mint twins outfits and roller skating around the office. It was kind of like right as advertising was transitioning
Yeah.
from the old days. I came to New York and I went to work at BlackRock initially. My first job was in finance, and I didn't really fit in there. And I decided, after that experience, that I really wanted to focus on a startup environment. So I was hired as the executive assistant to the CEO and co-founder of Casa Dragones Tequila, which is a woman named Berta Gonzalez from Mexico City. And I learned so, so much in 2 years' time, just being on her desk and seeing what went into building her brand, which is beautiful and elegant and so thoughtful and quality. And she had this amazing team of strategic advisors and investors, all kinds of celebrities, and venture. It was venture funded, so I got to see that side of the brand building process from the inside. But after a couple of years, I was pretty exhausted and worn out. It was pretty 24/7. And so I moved over to publishing, children's book publishing, and I worked at Scholastic for 4 years as a marketing project manager, which was quite a different culture. It's a very old company, very financially secure company, and I think we worked, 9 to 5 and very relaxed,
Yeah, very
wholesome
different.
environment. Yeah, but I still felt like, I have all this energy and drive and ambition to give, and I haven't found the mission or the organization that it feels like the right fit for. So at this point, I had tried reinventing myself so many times and felt very frustrated and kind of sad that I was still doing it. And so rather than keep trying and striving so hard, I did the opposite and I just decided to quit. I gave up. It sort of felt like this huge failure, but I was like, I'll go to the one place I've ever been in the world where I feel really good. And that for me was Bali. So I bought a one-way ticket to Bali and decided to sort of go hang out there for a little while and see if some answers would come to me from taking a different approach to my life, basically.
Yeah.
And that was the smartest thing I ever did. Um, Completely helped me refocus and reset. I think I'd become addicted a bit to like that productivity mentality of wanting to produce to validate myself and looking for some way to fit into something to prove my worth. And instead, there, I was able to reconnect with myself, with my right to be here, whatever I do or don't do, and sort of relearn how to just be joyful.
Yeah, that's amazing. So before we get into the kind of Baloo story, for a lot of people out there, I think they've at one point or another contemplated quitting their job and doing something like that. Can you walk through for those people, like, how do you think about it? All the reservations around like, oh, how am I going to make money? Or am I
Yeah.
going to start stressing out about that? How did you think about it and get there?
It's definitely important to have some reserve of cash with you when you do it. Otherwise, you won't be able to relax and enjoy yourself. So I knew in the back of my mind for several years that I was going to have to be making a change. So I was consciously saving money.
Okay.
I had about $20,000 in cash when I did it, and I kept my apartment and I sublet it. So I think for me, it was important to have a home base, like a place that was anchoring me back here and home, and know that I wasn't just sort of wandering around the globe.
Right. And how long did you stay in Bali for?
Initially for 3 months, I felt like, "Okay, this has been everything I needed it to be and more. I'm very happy." I booked a one-way ticket back to the United States, and then I got reverse culture shock in a really big way. This was, like, actually the defining moment for me because at this point, I had gone off and I had my fun, it looked great on Instagram, it was a good story to tell. I'd come back thinking I was victorious because here I am, I feel good. Now I'm miserable and I'm surprised and I don't have any money left. Either get a job, kind of go back to what that was before, or go back into the unknown. And that was the leap of faith. So I decided to go back to Bali and that was the most confusing time for me ever. But my belief and philosophy is if you want to make good, sound decisions for yourself in your life, you have to do it in a place where you feel grounded and supported. You can't do it when you're feeling scared and uncertain.
Yeah, so true. So when you think about where the idea originally came from for Baloo, what did that look like? And kind of what were your first few steps to try to get that started?
So I went back initially with the plan of spending time with the community in Bali of e-commerce entrepreneurs to learn from them. Not only the fundamentals of how to execute, but the mindset as well, because it is a shift. And I had a short list of different project ideas or business ideas, but I did narrow in on Amazon FBA as being the one that I wanted to approach. And so I used a data-driven approach to analyze the back-end keywords on Amazon to identify this trend that was growing in the weighted blanket space. It was 2017, and it was right at the time when weighted blankets as a category or a niche were just beginning to get some traction. And I looked at the competitors that were in the space, and I didn't see anything that appealed to a customer like myself, which is someone maybe who's more into ecology or sustainability, beautiful aesthetics, more elegant, feminine marketing appeal. So I got really excited when I saw that opportunity. And then when I tried one, I actually was so surprised by how deeply relaxing I felt. And
Yeah.
it was very moving for me actually just to feel this good so quickly and suddenly. And at that point, it changed from being a financial opportunity to being something I felt passionate about sharing with people. So I feel like I won the lottery because it was both a business sound decision, but I'm also very passionate about it. So it's got both of those elements for me.
Yeah, which is an important cross section, I feel like, for most entrepreneurs that succeed. So, for people that don't know, can you walk through what are the key health benefits and what's the health process that kicks in when you use a weighted blanket consistently?
Yeah, they've been used for, I'd say, decades by therapists to treat patients with any host of issues from anxiety to PTSD or neuroprocessing kinds of issues. But the way that they work is through something called deep pressure touch. And the weight of the blanket gives an evenly distributed pressure to the body that does something in the nervous system that signals to it that you're safe. And it's similar to the feeling of being held or hugged, like when you're a baby, or as adults, too. Studies show that being hugged really helps us on a chemical level. And it's the same thing with the blanket. So research shows that it can increase your levels of serotonin and decrease levels of cortisol, the stress hormone.
Got it. I love talking to founders who like created a physical product because I think people have tons of ideas, but it's pretty daunting to think about how to actually even just to make a prototype. And for you, you were in Bali when you started this process, right? So
Yeah.
that there's a whole like additional supply chain component. So walk us through kind of how you thought about creating the first product. Where do you source the materials? How do you put it together? And then kind of how do you get it out there for testing initially?
Yeah. So what I did was it was actually fortunate that I was in Bali because I was able to go to the Canton Fair, which was actually only 2 weeks from when I first discovered this product category. So I just flew to the Canton Fair and it was the textile mart. And I walked the floors of that convention center and I found a manufacturer there to work with to make the first prototype. And I brought several samples back with me to Bali. And I had lines of friends out the door that were waiting for their turn to sort of take the blanket home with them and test it that night. Especially in Ubud and Bali, you have a lot of people who are very into yoga and like natural healing. So this was perfect for them. And from that experience, we decided that, well, and I knew this anyway. So many people sleep hot, and especially women going through menopause sleep hot. But sleep is not seasonal. So I didn't want this blanket to be something people could only pull out and use in the winter. This is an all year round tool. So being in Bali was helpful because we were able to make sure that the product was breathable enough that you can use it even in warmer climates.
Okay.
So I ended up placing an order with that supplier. In our case, there's not a huge technology moat. It's a pretty simple, straightforward product. And they were a mass producer, mass supplier. So for them, my first order of 500 units was extremely small. And we ended up running into some quality issues with them later just because they didn't prioritize us at all. We were way too small for them. So we ran into quality control issues and delays in production and had a lot of challenges in the beginning working with them until eventually I changed suppliers and I found the perfect one for me.
Yeah. So how long did you focus on the Bali market, like getting it in the hands of people around you before you started to shift to, okay, either A, come back to the US and start to run it from there, or B, just get product to the US? How did you think about that?
As soon as I got the early feedback from friends in Bali and, based on my own experience and based on the data, it seemed like a no-brainer. It was just a question of deciding what were the best specs, sizes, weights, and fabrics to use. And so for that, I just used my gut. So we used really nice breathable cotton and we made it white because there were no other white options on the market. I'd say initially in launching through FBA, that primary photo is going to be so, so important because your shoppers are probably on mobile, they're probably scrolling fast, and you need a visual that's going to get them to look at you, to notice you. So everyone was selling gray and everyone was selling synthetic fabric. So we chose white and I placed an order almost immediately. I didn't even have the cash to pay for it. I just knew I would find the cash.
Yeah.
So I I made the down payment, I put the order in, and then I was like, okay, friends and family, who am I going to ask? And I hadn't asked anyone. I was trying to get up the nerve to ask for a loan from someone. And my dad actually offered to make a loan to me, which I said no to right away because I really wanted to do this independently of my family. If anything, I was motivated in part to wanting to be able to provide for my family. And so I said no. But fast forward, I'm in Bali. I'm having like a spiritual healing session, and the woman, I saw my dad's spirit come to me in the session, and we had this really amazing exchange where I realized that his offer of funding was truly just a love gift from the heart, and that by receiving it, I would be allowing him to contribute to me and to the business. And
Wow.
so
That's
I said
great.
yes. It's been amazing that we've been in it together because it's brought us together a lot closer. And he shared with me after the fact that at my exact same age, I was 37 at that time. At his 37th year, his dad had stepped in and given him funding for his business. And that had been really meaningful to him. So it's like this
Yeah, it's a
really
cycle.
mushy circle.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great story. I feel like it's like you said, it's more powerful when the whole family, is in together, and you're probably more diligent with your funding, you're more strategic because you have your dad in there with you.
Yeah. So we ended up getting to market quite quickly. Besides some production delays, I saw the opportunity, I think, in October 2017. By November, I placed an order, but then we were delayed because we missed Chinese New Year due to the factory's issues.
Okay.
So we didn't launch until April of 2018, but that was about 6 months window between identifying the opportunity and then getting the product to market.
And what did that traction growth look like? So you said like late 2017. From then till now, has it been a kind of slow and steady build? Did you have any spots where, your growth exploded either from certain organic search or different marketing tactics you deployed?
Yeah, our timing was very good in getting into FBA early, so we were able to sell out within 2 months without doing any advertising. That was unexpected and incredible. So we struggled with stockouts throughout just because the growth has been hard to predict. We had a major spike in December 2018 when the strategist ranked us as the best weighted blanket to gift, and so we sold out of everything in 2 days.
That's always a great I always read those articles like, oh, top 10 for any category and whatever's at the top always gets all the traffic. That's a
Yeah,
great place to be.
it was amazing. Also very sad because we didn't have any stock to sell for the rest of the holidays, but I learned a lot through that process. And so then it's, 2019, we saw just continuous gradual growth. And what's been really interesting is now since COVID, our growth has gone up even more because everyone is feeling so anxious and looking for ways to get better sleep.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned like the weighted blanket is really for everyone, for all ages, demographics. But when you look at the data of your key customer profile today, who's buying Baloo products right now?
We are seeing women, which I'm not surprised, and we're seeing the ages of 25 to 34 being our biggest market. Weighted blankets were new a few years ago to the mainstream, and so it's really a question of how much time frame is left before this market is saturated.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that. I looked at your site and was looking at some of the things you put out, and you're positioning yourself more as like a sleep company, less of like just a one product weighted blanket company, which I think makes sense. But from the weighted blanket side, how close do you think we are to maturity in that market?
Yeah, I mean, my gut says that there's maybe a 5-year total lifespan, and we might be in year 3 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think that this is a product that's going away. I think it's here to stay because people love them so much. But at this time, we've got to get one into every household, but then at a certain point, that will be accomplished.
Yeah. So strategically, if you have in the back of your mind that you think the market will be more, to its maturity in a few years or so, what are you thinking from a long-term perspective about the growth of the company? How are you thinking to diversify your product line and things like that?
Yeah, I do see us staying in sort of this sleep and personal wellness, mindfulness area. But I do plan to expand our product line past weighted blankets. We've done that with the launch of our Sleep Stone eye mask, which is a very, very soft and comfortable eye mask with a pocket that holds a crystal over your third eye chakra. And that's the location of the pineal gland, which regulates your sleep and wake cycles in the body. So we offer that with rose quartz, amethyst, and a few other crystals you can choose from to go with the sleep mask. And we've got some development work going on some sleep teas, and they're all plant medicine based and very interesting ingredients. I think there's some white space in the tea category, which is also growing very fast right now. So those are our two projects that are in development.
That's awesome. I love getting tactical on this show about what founders use, what techniques, what tactics they use from a marketing perspective to spur growth. And if there were any like out of the box collabs or approaches that you tried based on, what you read or friends you talked to, can you walk us through like what your marketing strategy has been? I know you mentioned you had a lot of stock outs, which limits the ability to market if you have no product left. But like what are some things that you've tried that you've seen success with?
I would say we've gotten very lucky. I've gotten very lucky and some things that have worked that I didn't expect to work or didn't do on purpose. But one of them has been the PR angle that we've invested in from the very beginning. So a lot of earned media, word of mouth, and reputational advantage just from being well ranked and well reviewed across the internet. I think it's really hard to find sort of like one hit wonders. A lot of it just has to do with doing everything everywhere as much as you can. But that strategist piece for us was huge. And I've tried to deconstruct that and understand what about it was so successful. And I don't really know the answer because we'll get published in O Magazine online and we'll see like 3 visits from that link. And I don't know why some things drive more traffic than others.
Do you actively search out those kind of big blog or online journals that put together those lists? It's really interesting why the traffic's so unpredictable with some of those.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do seek them out, but yeah, I don't know the answer why some drive more than others. I know some are affiliates, so they're paying to promote their content
Fair.
elsewhere as well, which that makes sense, but some affiliates are much bigger than others as well.
Yeah. When you think about competition, so I know, you have the knowledge of the Amazon FBA game, so you know all the different competitors that are on Amazon and sold through those channels. What does the competitive landscape look like to you? No free ads, you don't have to mention any other brands, but
Yeah.
who are you competing with? And when you have to proverbially pitch your solution versus theirs, why is Baloo a no-brainer?
Yeah, so the landscape has changed dramatically. Weighted blankets are super competitive. I think there was even an e-commerce case study on them done. So everyone that wanted to try FBA launched a weighted blanket. So we are not really competitive in the FBA space anymore. If you're coming to discover a brand on Amazon, there's been a lot of downward price pressure. I'd say most are selling between $50 to $100 and we're priced at about 169, so we're significantly higher price. But that said, like, you do get what you pay for, and I definitely keep checking the quality of those competitors, and I get them, and you can just feel this is a cheap thing made in China. I'm not naming any names, so I think I can say that.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for, and so we now are really focused primarily on building brand and building connections with our customers. So we are continuing to be available on Amazon FBA because a lot of people just feel more comfortable. They'll go to Amazon first to buy whatever they're looking for. So we're there for them. But most of our sales now come from off Amazon on our own website.
This is June 2020. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about how coronavirus and the COVID situation has affected your business. Can you shed some light for other entrepreneurs who maybe are listening to this 2, 3 years down the road and they didn't even have a company during this period, but they need to have an emergency plan in case something like this happens again? Can you walk us through kind of how it's affected your business and what changes you've made?
Yeah, I know a lot of my friends in e-commerce had issues with supply chain that made them low on stock just because of the slowdowns in production in China. But then when you look forward to I think what's been unexpected was this peak in online shopping when all the retail stores closed. So we definitely saw that, and that was a silver lining for this whole period for us. But on the other side of that, we also started to run out of inventory just because we didn't forecast this demand. So that was a challenge. We looked around and said, what can we do in this challenge with limited inventory? And we actually identified a new product that we're starting to sell on our own website that now they'll drop ship for us, but it fit into our product mix perfectly. So I think that's one of my biggest core beliefs is anytime something challenging arises or you find yourself in a crisis, there's always, always, always been something that I've learned or some improvement that comes away from it. If you keep an open mind and you don't, get too distracted by like the pain you might be feeling, there's always an opportunity. So I'm really excited for this new product that we're adding to our website. It's meditation chimes. We had a call with the creators. They've been studying sound therapy and like really going deep on that side of it for many, many years. And they're very heart-based creators, and we're really excited to launch this product. Just to say quickly what it is, they're called Solo speakers. It's 2 little speakers. They're self-contained. You hit play and they play a 3-minute sound that takes you into deep relaxation. Do it twice a day and you can sort of reset your body going forward. So we're launching those on our site soon.
That's great. I'm a huge manifester and I assume you probably are as well, being in the health and wellness space. If you were to manifest the future about scale, like in 5 to 10 years, what do you want Baloo to look like as a company?
That's a great question and one I'm still trying to answer every day. I would like us to continue to grow steadily. The explosive growth can be very painful, so I'm not really hoping for that. If we did 3 million last year, let's do 5 this year, let's do 8 next year. I like running a profitable small medium online business where I come to work every day feeling like I'm still really connected with the team, really connected with our customers, and things are very personal and taking care of people through our products and through our brand. And that's really my end goal, is just to being able to continue to do that in a healthy and sustained way.
And so, given that the huge volumes may not be a priority for you, like hundreds of millions of people using the products, I'm curious if you were to think through like the thought exercise of what would have to happen for 50% of households across the US to have a Baloo product or a weighted blanket or a mask, et cetera. What do you think has to happen in the industry and in the market for that to come true?
I mean, to become a ubiquitous household name brand like that, great question. I think we'd have to be, like, partnered with Starbucks.
Yeah, it'd have to be like or like medically required to solve coronavirus or something.
Right, right. I think if we yeah, if we could great model example of this would be Scholastic because they had exclusive right to sell through schools. So all elementary schools are selling their books because they have a give back tied into the teacher in the classroom. So that sort of a great model is something like that. But not to mention the funding that's required because that's been part of our challenge as well is to grow you've got to be able to fund that growth and we're definitely bootstrapped right now. I don't have any outside investors. So I think it would definitely take an acquisition.
Yeah. I'm curious to get your take on the health and wellness industry broadly. So I think this is something I'm personally really passionate about. And I think there's so many brands and products and even like new categories that people didn't even realize they needed or wanted coming up. It's almost overwhelming to a point where like, you've got 5 brands in every category across 10 different categories that you need to be healthy and well. How do you think that's going to change over time? Because I see a trend where more people want to be healthy, like that we know, and there's more products that allow them to get there. But searching and navigating those waters, how do you think that will change?
Well, as a consumer, I agree it's overwhelming and there's become this trend in the culture to create self-care as almost something else you have to do or keep up with. And that's the opposite of what self-care actually is. So my philosophy with this brand has always been about being really gentle with yourself and making something available to people in a way that if it calls to them, they have access to it, but it's not something that you have to do or feel like you're missing out on. To answer your question, I'm not sure I have very much clear insight into where it's going because I think here we in the West, we tend to always stay on some treadmill, like we may trade in the self-care treadmill for something else. I think that could have been some of the value of this slowdown period is I think people really did take some time to pause and actually question how much do they need in their life.
Yeah, I try to think about it like radically, like 15, 20 years. Like, will there be less brands, but they're more horizontally integrated across the product suite? So, like, I think of like Apple. Apple has become a go to for all things personal electronics your computer, your iPad, your phone, the pencil, like all of those products. If you like that brand and believe in their mission, you can satisfy all of your needs in that area, which is one brand. So, I'm curious, just your thoughts or hypotheses on do you think we'll have more of that where there'll be these big brands that either acquire a lot of small brands and fold them up into one unified brand vision, or are we just going to continue with this, 50 to 100 fragmented small companies that have their own vision, their own personality, which is what people like today, I think.
I think in the near term, in like maybe the next 3 or 5 years, you're going to continue to see these small brands thriving because you are able to connect with that customer. And that's sort of the appeal of it on the one end of the spectrum.
And it's never been easier for those brands to spin up, right? Like the cost of starting, other than time and stress, is like very low.
Right. On the other hand, if you fast forward far to the future, I could see an extreme situation where we start to have planned living spaces. Really your environment is a big influence on your well being. So, that is how is your room situated towards light and plants? Do you have quiet in your space? Do you have community in your space? And that's more of a master planned approach, but I think would be more effective towards supporting well being for people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that as well. So you're unique in that you've had this amazing experience to go internationally and like deeply experience completely different culture. Could you share some of the trends and themes around like, slowing your life down and like healthy living that you learned over there that you would love people here who may not have had that experience to maybe take with them?
Yeah, I can speak specifically about the Balinese culture, and what was so beautiful about being close to that was their belief is that it's a mixture of Hinduism and Buddhism. Their unique blend, I guess. And so, what is key in there is the belief of karma. So there's no good and bad. There's balance. Anything happens bad to you, You don't need to go get revenge, just believe in karma and take care of yourself. They also have very traditional family structures and live in family compounds. So you have, a Balinese home that's been there for 1,000 years with the same family coming and living and growing through it, and generations helping each other and supporting each other. And babies are so loved there. A baby isn't set down to touch the ground until after it's 2 years old. It's like a belief. I could be getting some of these wrong. If you're an expert on Balinese culture, please correct me.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm no expert, so it sounds good to me.
but you could take a baby into a bar, and the guy behind the bar is 20 years old with tattoos and long hair. He looks like he's too cool for school. He is going to come out and play with that child for an hour unless you don't stop him, because they're so family oriented, and it's so beautiful to see. You feel very safe there in that way, seen and loved and appreciated. And then there's strong culture of gratitude. So if you get a new truck, there's a ceremony to bless your truck. If you go to the dentist, there's a ceremony for the teeth extraction. There are ceremonies nonstop, and it's made it very difficult sometimes for Westerners to employ Balinese because they can't come to work because they have a lot of ceremonies.
Yeah.
Um, but there's this reverence and appreciation for the world that's not just the physical world. So there's this other element of spiritual world and energy that's all around us. And so tuning in and tapping into that and appreciating it, honoring it, and respecting it, I think opens up a lot of possibilities in our lives as humans, because we are not only physical. And we know that from quantum physics that we're also energy.
Yeah, I'm totally in that mindset. I'm a huge believer in like everybody's set to a certain vibration. I feel like people are projecting vibrations all the time, and when you come in contact with someone who has a similar vibration to you, you like gel at a subconscious level or a quantum level that
Stuff happens.
yeah, stuff happens. Either of you might not be aware of that. I'm very new into like understanding how to tune those vibrations and tweak it and like funnel positivity and gratitude to do so. But I totally believe it.
One thing I've seen, it's very difficult for me to channel that. It's one thing to go there and get your fix because you can kind of feed off that energy. But for myself here, what I'll do is go out to nature. So go to a place with trees, get an Airbnb for a weekend, and I can feel that energy shift in myself. The nature recharges. And there's also been studies that have shown the impact on our health just from seeing trees or being near trees. So it's very real.
Yeah, I agree. More trees, people. More
More
trees.
trees.
So I want to shift a little bit to a little more of a rapid fire round. You mentioned you have some full time people, you have some part time people all across the US. Of course, everyone's remote now. What characteristics do you look for in people that you hire that have proven to be like consistent qualities across the superstar people on your team?
I look for people who love what they're doing. Like, they are living their true path for themselves. And if that path is aligned with us, that's perfect, because then you have the marriage of everything being in alignment. Clarity of communication, totally, as everything for me. Organization, it's really hard, I think, to find someone that can see the big picture and the details at the same time. But that's what we need right now for the stage of growth that we're in. And we're only 3 full-time employees, including myself. And then another is ability to evolve and learn and grow, because where we were 6 months ago is so different from where we are now. And I want people that are able to, they're really curious minds, always looking for outside information, advice, perspectives, and then internalizing that, bringing it back to us and helping us grow. So there's that hunger and curiosity, desire to learn, and I think it has less to do with being a subject matter expert and more to do with having the right mindset.
Yeah. What's the biggest piece of advice you've gotten, or a couple from mentors along the way of your entrepreneurial journey?
One is that distraction often comes in the form or disguised as opportunity. So that has been very helpful for me, because I did tend to get very distracted in the beginning. We had early success, and then a lot of people pitched exciting ideas and things we could do. It seemed like opportunity, but really it was a big distraction. So I needed some help to see what was most important for us to focus on to drive us in the true direction that we're going, not the sideways energy. But on the subject of mentorship, if I may add, equally important to me than mentors has been this community of fellow e-commerce founders and female entrepreneurs. I find something very powerful in being in a community of female entrepreneurs, whether they're e-commerce or not. And I really love that. So I'm in a couple of masterminds with other women, and then I'm in a couple of communities with e-commerce sellers. And I think that is incredibly powerful, because you realize that everyone's an expert at something, but no one knows everything, and it's all changing all the time anyway. So using each other as a resource is like priceless.
And for people who don't know what a mastermind is, can you walk through like what that is, how many people are in it, and then if people are interested in finding one for themselves, what that would look like?
Yeah, I'm in one with two other women. There's three of us, and we have calls every other week for 1 hour. Sometimes we will set an agenda ahead of times, other times not, but there's enough time in that hour for each of us to get feedback on an issue we might be having challenge with. So it's friendship, it's supportive, and it's also feedback from someone who's really experienced in that exact area. And so the three of us are all running e-commerce brands. One of them is Steph, who you've spoken to.
Okay, awesome. And how do you find were you friends with them already and said like, "Hey, we should make a group to hold ourselves more accountable," or was it part of that broader community and you kind of peeled off the three of you?
In our case, it wasn't intentional. I'd say one of my biggest misbeliefs or things I had misunderstood going into this was thinking that I had to do it all on my own. And it's like as soon as I took that first step and made this from an idea to a reality, start to get into it, it's like so many people came out of the woodwork to support and help. And you realize there's a lot of other people on this path also walking it. And people who are entrepreneurs are the most generous and the most supportive and giving of anyone else who's stepped out and sort of started to take that risk also. And so Steph was introduced to me through a mutual friend. Just thought that we would have something to talk about related to business. And Sadie, I met through a group called Dynamite Circle.
Okay.
And that one actually was an intentional mastermind. So Dynamite Circle set up masterminds. I just volunteered to be put into one. Our group kind of dissolved, but we kept each other. And we were like, hey, let's build this out into like what we want it to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kind of yin and yang question here around like a frustrating moment and then a validating moment. So the first one, can you recall a story or experience along the way that was just so frustrating or difficult as a founder? Maybe not like an I want to quit moment, but just something that really tested your patience
Yeah.
daily.
I mean, this is an easy and dramatic example to give up, but it was very real at the time. And it goes back to that sellout we had our first holiday. And the timing on that was extreme because we'd had our delivery of inventory arrive. Call it a Tuesday. I don't know, at our warehouse. It's a brand new 3PL fulfillment center that I've never worked with before. Tuesday it lands. Wednesday the piece of press goes out. Wednesday, Thursday we sell everything. And this warehouse had never done direct to consumer order fulfillment before. They were like a bulk warehouse. So they were new. So they're learning a new software tool themselves. So they go to work trying to fulfill all these orders. Things get misshipped, they get delayed. They say, okay, tell your customers it's going to be 5 days, but we'll get it out. I tell them 5 days, 5 days go by, like half the orders still haven't shipped. And then we realized that our supplier had mislabeled some products. So a lot of orders that had been shipped wrong. And we had to recall them. Now we're out of stock because we've shipped everything out, but we shipped it to the wrong people. So I went there. The warehouse is in California, flew in and tried to sort through, physically the boxes with the staff on the floor, trying to figure out how to make this go right. And that was a moment when I thought I might like burst a blood vessel.
Yeah, that sounds so insane. So on the flip side, what's a story or moment that stands out that was so validating where you were able to step back and just be like, wow, I can't believe that just happened.
Oh, yeah. So just recently, I'd always thought in my back of my mind, I want to be the weighted blanket that gets picked up by Goop. They're like my perfect. Say what you will about Goop, there's some controversy around them, but that was sort of my buyer persona. And just last month, they emailed us and said, "Hey guys, how quickly can we get you in our store?"
That's awesome.
I was like, "Oh, we can send you our price sheet. Do you need to see it?" They're like, "Nope, just get in our store."
I feel like as you grow a brand and more of those things start happening, it's easy to like get desensitized to how incredible they really are. But that's a really good one where you just step back and you're like, wait, that's so
That just
awesome.
happened.
Yeah, that's great. When you think about like looking backward, and I don't love to do this, but if you were to teleport back to the first couple of months when you were starting out, what would you tell yourself?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Breathe, relax, keep exercising, and keep it in perspective because it's easy to get overwhelmed and you're going to grow very quickly and always look back and think, "Oh, pat on the head, you're so cute and little. You don't know what's coming next." But maybe just not to even take it so seriously. It's all going to be okay. And you're just going to keep growing and keep taking new ground and new ground and new ground. And what seems like the scariest, hardest thing right now, you will grow through.
Very good advice for people out there that are stressing out. So other than the coronavirus stuff, which for an e-commerce brand, I know it, helps and hurts, right? It helps a lot of people at home shopping on e-commerce, hurts and that the supply chain's disrupted and a bunch of other things. Other than those things, what's your biggest challenge right now? Like what's keeping you up at night with the business?
It's really about building the team because there is so much. I mean, I have extreme FOMO. There is so much that I see that we can be doing and just not enough people in place to execute it well. So it's finding the right people to build the team out. And I find hiring is very hard to do well, in my opinion. So that's my biggest struggle is patience and then building the team.
The full-time people and the few part-time that you have, where did you go to find those people?
It's been through my network so far. I will say full disclosure, director of operations just hired this year is actually my sister.
Okay.
So
Keep
that
it in
I
the
didn't go
family.
keep it in the family. But she's great at what she does. So I knew what I was getting with her. And she didn't have direct supply chain operations experience, but it's like going for the raw material. She's a true problem solver, true collaborator, no ego, like no BS and hard worker. And that's what I went for. Otherwise, I feel I've been very fortunate through my network and word of mouth. Like our paid media guys are amazing. They're not an agency. We work together. They're very entrepreneurial, very collaborative, and very fun. But for this round, it's where I'm starting to go outside my network and really screen candidates and make a choice. I think that might be a better way going forward is not to work with the first person that you know. That's the easiest to find. So we're going to look at the network plus LinkedIn.
I've said this on the show a bunch, but I agree with you. I think hiring is one of the most, if not the most important thing you can do. Like if you get superstar people who are motivated, self-driven, there is no better return on time. Almost everyone that's come on has said hiring is one of the hardest things they do. And, some companies that we've talked to who are bigger, who like just built out their executive team, Justin was one of them, and another episode that just came out with Ryan Dennehy of Electric. He spent like 6 months, like he told the rest of the people that were on his leadership team already, look, I have to focus on hiring. Like if I don't do this, we're going to get crushed. And he spent 6 months just building out that executive team. And then once that's in place, your life as a founder is, yeah, so much easier. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah. We're looking for a growth marketer, if I can say that. It's a great opportunity. Come into a small business and own it all.
The plug is in if
Yeah.
you're interested in growth marketing. Most people come on here, almost every single founder that I've had, describes a really turbulent experience, ups, downs, etc. But they love it. But it's so difficult. It's just so difficult. And it's been described, like being a founder has been described by a few of them as, one of, if not the hardest job in the world, other than first responders and things like that. If you were to sum that up, why do you think being a founder is just so hard?
There's no way to know if you're doing it right. There is literally no way to know if you're doing it right as you go. You are making your own path and no one can do it for you because that's what it's all about is your own path.
No benchmarks to compare to.
Yeah, I mean that's my experience anyway. Is there's people who can walk the path next to you, but no one can do it for you, and you cannot expect someone to ever do it for you either. There's no way to delegate or outsource leading. So it doesn't stop. It's like every hour that I'm awake or asleep, I'm thinking or dreaming about the business.
Yeah, hopefully the blue blanket makes that sleep a little bit less difficult. But agreed. So a question for you, like as if you put either your consumer hat on or pretend you are an investor and you are allocating capital, what are some market trends that you see emerging, some other ones that you see emerging that make you really excited, either to participate as a consumer or that you would recommend an investor to take a look at?
One that I get very excited about is creating experiences for people. And I'm that's a little bit disrupted right now, but experiences take it out of theory and into real life. So if you can create an experience for someone, either hosting an engaging experience or a place that they can come and enjoy, that you get to really connect on a visceral level with someone and share the brand story or the values and hear what matters to them. I think that's the most exciting. So one of my ideas is to create a retreat space in Bali where people can go. And yes, Baloo is there and our products are there, but so is the jungle and so is the Balinese. And you're having healthy food and light and getting to really experience what it feels like to be cared for and nurtured by Mother Earth.
It sounds like you've given a lot of thought to how to craft your like space to, better emphasize and accentuate the healthy practices that you've picked up all across the world. What would you recommend to people around like light, plants? If you were to design a space from scratch with that main purpose in mind, what would you try to solve for?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. I think it's light, it's plants, and birds. Birds and bugs are big ones for me too, because I think that that soundtrack going on in the background also affects our well-being. So I listen to recordings that I made traveling of those things sometimes, and I can feel my energy shifting just from hearing nature sounds.
Yeah, it just feels like you're outside, like in the mix with nature. So, a couple questions that are less related to the business. So, one's around morning routine. So, I've asked most founders this question that have come on, and a lot of them have a really rigorous morning routine that they follow. And I've done a lot of reading on that. Do you have a morning routine? And if so, what does it look like?
Yes, I wake up early, very early, sort of with the sun, and that's based on where the light is in my room. So it comes in and wakes me up around 6. I don't use an alarm clock. I get up whenever I feel ready to. So it might be 6:30, it might be 7. I make coffee. I give myself at least an hour to try not to think about work and newly reinstating after being lapsed morning meditation. So it's pretty simple, but it's wake up early, coffee, meditate.
And for people who are looking to get into meditation, what type of meditation do you do? Like, how do you do it? How long do you do it for? I was trying to get at this earlier. There's just so much competing information around each of these core like healthy practices, one being meditation. So what would you recommend based on what you've learned?
I would really recommend to people to try different things and see what works for them. I know that some people love guided meditation, Headspace is out there, Calm is out there, and they must be popular for a reason. Give them a try, see if you like it. But there's other things to try too, like non-guided meditation or listening to sounds. I use an app called Will Williams Meditation Timer. It's a free app and it just gives you a timer that you can set and it gives you soft sounds like bells at the beginning and end so you can just quiet, and I would say start small. Start with 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Don't try to do, 30 minutes of seated meditation. You'll go crazy.
Yeah. And are you focused on a mantra word? I've listened to Headspace a lot and they say basically like try to, see your thoughts as they're going by and like acknowledge them and like let them float by almost like a highway. Is that what you're doing? Like what are you trying to focus on at the beginning to get into it?
For me, well, the most important thing is to not judge whatever happens in your mind. I like TM, Transcendental Meditation, and so it's required that you go to the training to get your mantra, and it's given to you. So it's just a few syllables that are my mantra, and so I state those, and usually I'm saying that mantra is happening over and over. My brain is going crazy. I'm like thinking through problems. I'm making lists. It's not quote unquote good meditation, but it is. That's how it works. So just let that be.
Yeah. It's impossible to go well, not impossible, but it's really tough to go just on the mantra and nothing else for like
Yeah.
20 minutes. Like it's very difficult.
Yeah, and it's still valuable to do that, so, just don't judge it. Just set the timer, sit there, and whatever happens is perfect.
Cool. A couple questions around brands and products that you use. So, just broadly, what are some brands or companies that you admire or look up to, either from a messaging standpoint, the design, the products that you use and like?
I love Lunia, the pajama company. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with them. They've been around, I think, 6 or 8 years, based in Santa Monica, and their emails make me laugh every time. They're, like, funny. Their clothing is gorgeous and elegant, but then their copy is really snarky, and I love that. Another one is AYR. It's a women's fashion brand here in New York. It's very high end, like high quality basics, jeans and shirts. I love their photography. Their graphic design is beautiful. And another one is Cadence. So Steph's making the recycled plastic travel pods to replace the toss away travel containers that really kind of ruin your stuff and leak all over your bag. So I think her branding is so gorgeous and her product design is really beautiful.
Me too. Yeah, I love talking to her. One other question around like products that you use. So, what's one product other than the blue blanket, of course, that you can't live without for your personal life? And then what's one product that you can't live without for your business today?
I change a lot. So right now, I love these meditation speakers, and we're using them every day when we start work, and I use them in the evening sometimes. So it's kind of like we had to send them off for a photo shoot, and we were all so sad they were gone.
Yeah.
So I really love that, and that's not a product plug. I just love these speakers. And then the other question.
Are there any like productivity tools or software tools that you use for from a business perspective that you like couldn't live without?
Well, we're just implementing a new one that I'm really looking forward to getting into. It's called Guru. It's a knowledge base. So we spend a lot of time right now slacking Q&As like for customer service or marketing. And so we're putting all of our product processes and operational data into this one, online database that everyone can access. It has a Chrome plugin and a Slack integration. And so I'm really excited to have things organized and housed.
Nice. That's all you need. Chrome and Slack, you're good to go.
Yeah.
All right, so three more questions for you. So the first one is around learning and resources. So, what books, newsletters, podcasts, follows on social media, or any other resources would you recommend for either people who are aspiring founders and looking to kind of learn more about entrepreneurship, or just really passionate about health and wellness and want to learn more?
Great question. There are so many. Ezra Firestone, I think, is a phenomenal resource for e-commerce specifically. He offers courses and does a lot of free content. So he's one. I'll say another one that I love is also The Hustle. It's a daily newsletter of sort of news and happenings, but they do have workshops and events. And they have a membership that you can join. I think it's a few $100s a year, but it's called Trends. And it's very insightful, well curated, and it's a supportive community too. So that's another great resource if you're just starting out.
Awesome. Okay, so final two questions. We ask these to every guest, so I'm really excited to get your take. The first one is the startup manifesto. So, if you had to write a startup manifesto with five of the most important key lessons or pitfalls to avoid when starting out, what would they be?
Okay. First of all, if something doesn't feel right, even just a little bit, don't do it. It doesn't matter if you want this to be the person, you want this to be the thing. If there's something telling you that it's not quite right, it's not worth it. So trust yourself and trust your intuition when you're making those decisions. And going along with that is the 10-10-10 rule, which I think is very good because tough decisions are really awful for 10 minutes. But if you look forward 10 months, you're going to be pretty okay with them. And in 10 years, you're going to be seeing, thank God I made that decision. So that makes difficult decisions become a little bit easier. And that's sort of segues into the next one here, which is hire slow and fire fast. So if someone's not working out, you have to make that decision that they're not the right person. The 10-10-10 rule can be very helpful. But like we were just saying, I think that team is the most important foundation that's going to help you be successful and also enjoy the process in building a business. So finding people that have a mutual understanding of your goals and objectives is key. And then together you can figure out how you're going to get there. Three is make time for exercise and make time for people who keep you whole. So if you don't exercise or you don't make time for people who are going to love you, whether or not you're successful, you will burn out. So that feeds your soul and will keep you healthy so you can give back to the business. Four is it's not about you, it's about your customers. So listen to what they tell you or listen to what the data is telling you and do not argue with it. Listen to them. That is where your opportunity is. Even if you disagree, it doesn't matter. And never take your customers for granted. Number five is every crisis is an opportunity. Always. Every time that we've had something that seemed like a big disaster, we failed inspection. I flew to the factory and personally inspected every item. That was a huge opportunity for me to get much closer to the production process and understand our product. And it seemed like a huge disaster, but there was a lot of silver lining around it. So just keep an open mind. And anytime there's a crisis, just know that there's an equal opportunity there and keep looking for that.
Awesome. That's a great list, and some things that the 10-10-10 rule is really interesting. It's something I'd never heard before, so that's great. The last question is a nomination. So it's your turn to nominate another founder that is a friend, colleague, or mentor of yours that you'd like to see on the show.
I'm going to nominate my friend Hassan. He has a board game company called Trekking the National Parks. He is a great, great guy. So smart, so creative.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have to get him on. Would love to talk to him. So before we wrap, I just want to acknowledge you for a second. I think after listening to the conversation, your fearlessness to try new things is really inspiring to me. So as you detailed your background, especially, you weren't afraid to jump to new industries that you didn't previously have experience with. You weren't afraid to, cut from the US, go to Bali, stay there, completely shift the culture that you were interacting with, and then really start something new. So that fearlessness is something that I think a lot of people listening can learn from. And I really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to staying connected and supporting Baloo as you grow.
Thank you so much. Really is an honor to be here and to be able to reflect back a little bit on this crazy ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you go, so just to plug your website and social media for you and the business as well, in case people want to follow.
Yes, the company is called Baloo Living. Our website is balooliving.com, and Instagram is the best way to find us. We are at Baloo Living.
Elizabeth Grojean, founder of Baloo, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to that episode with Elizabeth Grojean of Baloo. Remember, if you liked what you heard and want to support the show, there's a couple quick things you could do that would really help us out. These should take about 2 minutes in total, but I cannot tell you how important they are to help the show grow. So if you're interested in that, stick around. Number 1, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts. When you go on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star rating and a couple sentence positive review on why the show inspired you. These ratings and reviews are super important because they signal to Apple that they should put our show in front of other people that might like it. 2, follow us on social, mainly Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Founder Podcast. Each week we put out teasers, audio clips, and important quotes from the episode. And lastly, check out our website as a mission control for the show. Go to thefounderpod.com. We have a special page on there called Special Offers, where we aggregate all the discount codes from all of our founders' companies, as well as the books and resources that have been recommended across our episodes. I hope you enjoyed that episode and are looking forward to the next one. Until then, I'm Kallaway, and this is The Founder.